I knew someone once in an online world. The kind of world where people build entire identities out of pixels and late night conversations. Where relationships blur together. Where roleplay stops feeling like roleplay after enough years pass. Where people fall in love, disappear, reinvent themselves, and destroy each other softly. I met her when she was still very new, before she had status, before she had a circle built around her, before the complicated relationship dynamics and social ecosystems that form around long-term virtual communities. And I remember thinking she was incredible. Not in a dramatic way, just magnetic. She had this softness to her, this sweetness. She could make people feel comfortable very quickly. She was expressive, emotional, affectionate. The type of person who could make strangers feel special in a single conversation. And because I saw that softness, I ignored the strange feeling I occasionally got around her. That tiny instinct. That feeling that something underneath the warmth wasn't completely genuine. But when you care about someone, you explain those feelings away. You tell yourself you're overthinking. And honestly, I was distracted with my own life anyway. People online used to assume I was constantly around because I owned land, because I was known in certain communities, because I had history there. But the truth is, for years, I barely existed socially compared to most people around me. I spent years in long-term ownership dynamics that became real-life relationships, serious ones. I moved to places for people, shared homes with them, built routines around them. Second Life stopped being just a game for me a very long time ago. And because of those relationships, I actually roleplayed far less than people imagined I did, especially in Gore. I wasn't really allowed to wander around alone roleplaying. My partners weren't huge fans of the environment, and honestly, I understood why. Gore can become emotionally exhausting very quickly, competitive, territorial, socially predatory sometimes. So while others spent years constantly immersed in the social scene, networking, role-playing daily, forming cliques, shaping reputations, I was mostly absent, busy, disconnected, half in another life entirely. Which meant when I finally came back and reconnected with her years later, I was genuinely excited. It felt nostalgic, like reopening an old book and finding the pages still warm. At first it felt comforting, familiar. But the longer I spent around her, the more I started noticing this strange disconnect between the tone of what she said and the actual meaning behind it. Because some people don't communicate hostility directly. They communicate it through plausible deniability, through helpfulness, through feedback, through carefully softened little remarks that can always be defended later. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. There's this specific kind of social behavior that exists heavily in online female spaces, especially. Communities built around aesthetics, attention, roleplay, streaming, and social identity, where aggression becomes extremely indirect, Nobody says, I feel competitive with you. Nobody says, you intimidate me. Nobody says, I don't like that people compare us. Instead, it comes out sideways. Oh, someone thought you were my alt. Maybe you just need a more unique style. You'll figure out your own thing eventually. It's just feedback. And technically, none of those sentences sound cruel. That's the genius of it. Because the cruelty exists in implication, not wording. The message underneath becomes, you are derivative. You are less established. You are trying to become me. You are behind me socially. And what disturbed me most was how she often framed these things as coming from someone else, not her opinion, just repeating what another person supposedly said, which creates this really strange psychological trap. Because if you get hurt, suddenly you're irrational. After all, they were just telling you. It's emotional distancing, a way to deliver criticism while avoiding accountability for the emotional effect of the criticism. And I remember sitting there reading these conversations thinking, why do I suddenly feel embarrassed? Because objectively, the conversation looked friendly. There were hearts, hugs, love you, jokes, affection. Everything looked soft on the surface. But emotionally, it felt like being slowly pushed downward while someone smiled at you. And honestly, that kind of behavior messes with your head more than direct cruelty does. At least direct cruelty is honest. At least direct cruelty allows you to protect yourself immediately. But covert hostility forces you to question your own instincts. You start wondering, am I imagining this? Am I too sensitive? Did she mean it that way? Why do I feel bad after every interaction if nothing bad was technically said? And over time, I started realizing how much of her social behavior revolved around positioning, subtle positioning, tiny reminders of hierarchy. She would talk to me almost like someone speaking to a younger sibling trying to find themselves, which was bizarre to me because our actual histories were very different. I had years of experiences she didn't know the half of, years of relationships, years of sacrifice, years where this virtual world became deeply tied to my real life. But because I disappeared for long stretches and wasn't constantly socially visible, it was almost like my absence erased my history in people's minds. And meanwhile, she had remained continuously present socially. That matters online more than people realize. Visibility becomes status. Constant social participation becomes perceived authority. People start unconsciously treating online spaces like kingdoms. Who stayed active? Who stayed seen? Who became recognizable? And I think somewhere along the way, she began seeing herself as someone above me socially, while simultaneously trying to keep me emotionally close, which creates an incredibly uncomfortable dynamic because the affection stops feeling genuine. It starts feeling managerial, like someone petting you while quietly reminding you they're more important than you. And maybe the strangest part is this. I don't think she thought she was being mean. I genuinely don't. I think Some people adapt to online environments for so long that manipulation becomes normalized communication, especially in spaces built around social survival. Virtual worlds reward indirectness. They reward people who can maintain innocence while controlling narratives softly. The nicest looking people are sometimes the best at subtle social violence because they understand optics. They know how to hurt someone in ways that cannot easily be quoted back later. There's no smoking gun, no outright attack, just enough tiny comments to slowly destabilize someone emotionally. And when you finally notice it happening, you start replaying years of interactions differently. You start realizing how many moments felt strange for a reason, how many compliments had hidden comparisons inside of them, how many comforting conversations subtly lowered your self-worth, and how often you walked away feeling emotionally smaller without understanding why. That's the part that people don't talk about enough with online relationships. Not all manipulation is explosive. Some of it is incredibly soft. Some people don't scream. They gently reshape your perception of yourself over time. And because they smile while doing it, everyone assumes they're kind. But your nervous system notices anyway, even before your mind fully catches up. And looking back now, I think that's why something always felt off from the beginning. Because sometimes your intuition notices contradictions long before your logic can explain them.